Hi, I'm Sean Emerson, and welcome to MenLiving's The Big Question. At MenLiving, we continually looking for ways to create spaces that can lead to more connection, growth, and harmony. With that mission in mind, we assemble a diverse group of individuals in a virtual space to explore societal big question once every month. Our intention is to offer perspective from different angles, promoting more curiosity and understanding. Who canceled recess? Our sixth edition is all about play and why adults might not play like they did as kids. Our panel members, Bouey, Jennifer Kopach, Jason Samatas, and Bess Dworin, explore what play means to them, what they do for play, and why play may be difficult for adults. The panel discusses play versus competition, play and being in flow, and sex as play. Yep, that's right. Hope you enjoy August's The Big Question.
August as well. Okay, very good.
So what's up, everyone? Nice to see you all. Welcome to this month's Big Question. And so as you all know, most of the time, we talk about serious things, and maybe tonight will be a serious conversation too, but we're going to talk about play. And if we're not playing enough, then that's a serious issue, which we'll be covering. But what does play mean? So somebody said to me, who canceled recess for adults? And so we just kind of want to explore in this serious time, are we making enough time for play? And so maybe we start just kind of going around the horn. What does play mean to you at this time in your life? And anyone can go.
Look at everybody thinking so hard about
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
isn't it sad how we have to think so hard about play?
Don't play. I'll go, Sean.
Okay, you're
Right.
you're going.
I got you. So play for me is getting up at 5 a.m. to play basketball 3 times a week.
Ooh.
That's some adult play right there. Because I would not prefer to get, as you know, Sean, I am not a morning person.
Right.
So if I'm getting up at 5 a.m., it's something that I really love. So me and a bunch of old guys that are trying to relive their basketball dreams, get up and go to the gym and we play basketball. That's our play. And it's been really good.
So what's the banter like at those 5 a.m. hoop games?
It's pretty chill for the most part. I feel like the younger guys are a little bit more like edgy, but the older guys are just like they're there to kind of have fun. They're there to win. They're not there to like be Kobe Bryant. You don't see a lot of ball hogs or anything like that. So that's why I like it. You know what I'm saying? Because with the younger guys, they got something to prove. They're looking for wives and stuff like that. They're looking for endorsements. So they're just trying to like show off everything. I'm 38 years old. I'm too old for that. I'm just there to have some fun. And a lot of other people there as well. Everybody has kids and stuff. I think the reason is because everybody's working, everybody has kids. So the only time to actually be able to do it is at 5 a.m. So, and people are pretty committed to it too. So,
do any of those younger guys refer to you
for a
as
long time? Oh, sorry, Sean.
No, go ahead.
Are these guys you know for a long time? Like, are they old friends or new basketball?
So yes, so I have 2 groups that I go with, and one of the groups are a bunch of educators from Plainfield. So I used to work in Plainfield maybe about like 6 years ago, and I still keep in contact with them since Plainfield is right next door to Joliet, not too far away from my house. So they hit me up, say, "Hey, you still willing to play basketball?" I'm like, "Yep, sure." So I show up there and we play. So I've known these guys for almost about 10 years. So.
Ah, that's beautiful.
Do any of the younger guys refer to you as old man? Has that ever come up? Ever?
No, they'll come up to me and they'll try to size me up. And I'm just like, "How old are you?" And they're like, 31. And I'm like, "I'm 38 years old." They're like, "No, you're not 38 years old." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm 38 years old, man. I'm on the down climb, man." Just here to
Yeah.
have fun.
Take it easy about being on the
Easy on me.
Careful,
downhill,
Andre.
right, on the
I'm no
downhill
threat.
slide.
I'm no threat.
Right.
Good for you, Andre. That's like that is an adult form of play because there's sacrifice in order to do what you want to do, which is the adult part.
Yes. Thank you.
So is that part of the definition for you now, SB, is sacrifice, right?
Well, my first association when you asked the question was playing with my daughter, who is 6, and she is a child who can make believe the entire day from sun up to sundown. And it really stretches my capacity for play. I confess, like sometimes I really don't want to pretend. And I find it extremely difficult to stay in character, and she never forgets. If she's a boy or a man and you misgender her, she's going to correct you right away. I mean, she's just always in character. It's really method acting. It's pretty amazing. And so that's the form of play that I feel constantly stretched by right now. And I'm just aware of how stultifyingly boring I am as an adult, and just like don't want to pretend, don't want to be in the world of make believe, and nope, just want to be alone, not talk to anybody, read my book.
That's your play,
down.
right?
Yeah, well,
right.
That's not play. It's I'm aware that I don't want to play, and I wonder what that means.
So when you're on the dance floor and you like throw the lasso to the other person and you pull them in, I feel like you just did that to me, because I was gonna go last on this topic because I understand what play is and I know what the definition of it is, but I don't think I do it anymore. And I think that I'm so consumed by the responsibilities of life that I obviously do things where I am in flow and I'm enjoying cooking or gardening or all the things I like to do, watch movies, do stuff with my husband and, have great times with friends, which I consider like my fun flow time where I'm not thinking about anything else except the moment. But in terms of like play and like the letting go and the creativity of it and the spontaneity of it, I think I'm in kind of the same boat as SB, where I think we're out of practice.
So does it feel unnatural? If you're feeling about being a little less mature? And so
I don't know that anybody would ever say that I'm mature. I think I'm trapped in my 15-year-old girl self still. I think that would be my spirit age as a rebellious teenager. So I think I have the spirit of play, but I think the definition to me is just always, there were just a bunch of kids at the end of my driveway just now that all just got together on their big wheels and they were just doing, donuts at the end of the driveway, running around after school, having a ball, no parents anywhere. That to me is just play. It's freedom. See, that's part of, I don't feel like I have a lot of freedom. So I have good times, but they're also still arranged and planned for, so.
Yeah. Do you, what the kids do with the science challenge? Is that play?
I think so, because you're given some parameters, but within that space, you're allowed to build and create, and you get to work with different people. So you are playing. I think that's one of the things that's great about, the organization that I am with, is that we do create a lot of experiences for kids to self-direct and do things that are very like physical and tactile, but also engage your brain, but also engage all your soft skill senses of like learning how to be with other people. So that's a really, that's actually something that I would like to do more of. I walk by these little DIY like STEM places that pop up and think, maybe I should go into one of those,
You'd have to schedule it.
Of course I would have to schedule it. I would find a time and I would schedule it. So yeah.
But I think you hit on something that feels really true about play, which is that true play is highly improvisational.
Yeah.
And that feels so connected to what you said earlier about freedom. You really have to liberate yourself from your external controls and internal inhibitions in order to really be able to respond in the moment. Yeah, I see you nodding, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, totally agree with, what you've all said. It's totally a state of mind. Maybe 5-10 years ago, I would have said, oh, play for me is going out to play golf or hanging out with my guy friends or watching a football game on a Sunday. And now it's not that, because I still do those things. And I notice that I don't enjoy them anymore. It's not because I don't enjoy the activity. It's because I'm not able to, I forgot if it was Jenny or Sarah that said it, Sarah or SB, that, I couldn't free my mind. I couldn't be present. For example, even just this past weekend, I was back in Chicago, and I was hanging out with some of my old high school friends who I've still stayed in touch with. And I was having some relationship issues with my partner, and I was totally distracted. And that should have been a night of play. And it wasn't a terrible night. I'm exaggerating that. I wasn't fully present, and I didn't get to fully enjoy the moment, which should have been play, which me and my buddies of 30 plus years hanging out and making fun of each other and doing this dumb things that we do, or saying the dumb things that we say, so to both your points, it's like a state of mind. And I think the bigger question I think someone might pose is, why is it so hard to get there? Why is it so hard to play? And I've got some theories on that, but I think that's the whole point of tonight's call, right, Sean, to talk about who canceled recess.
Yeah. So run with that. Why do you start with that? Why do you think it's so hard?
When I was thinking about it, when I was kind of thinking about this prior to this call, first I was thinking about all the traditional restrictions, childhood, parents, society, culture, the rules. And then I started thinking about more, and I'm like, that's an easy excuse. Oh, my parents didn't bring me up the right way where I really learned how to enjoy how to play. So, because I feel guilty because my parents instilled some negative messaging. Bullshit. Or no, oh, I got 3 kids and I'm a single dad, and I work a lot. Again, I call bullshit on that, because the only thing that's canceling my recess, my personal recess, is me not having enough mental and emotional discipline to carve the time out to free my mind of all the stories going on in my head. And it's a real challenge for me. It is a serious challenge for me that I feel like I'm getting worse at, actually, as I'm getting older.
And I think that there's a neurological component to that. I think that there's a reason why adults are less playful than kids. And we get less playful, maybe some, as we get older. And I was just watching, I don't know if you've all seen the film Inside Out. It came up, yeah. So 6-year-old, we watched Inside Out, and there's a great visual metaphor for what you're describing. If you recall, Imagination Land or Fantasyland or whatever is one of the child's islands in her brain that's connected to her identity. It's like one of the main features of her personality. And at some point in her growing up, this difficult move, her family goes through this difficult move, and at some point that imagination land gets severed from her kind of main systems control. And I think that there are things that happen throughout life that take away that ability to play, for many, for some more than others. Like adverse childhood experiences can certainly pound the play out of any person. But I think for all of us, there's that neurological pruning that happens where pathways in the brain are pruned in order that you can do very specialized tasks. And we all can do much more specialized tasks than we could do when we were 6. And we can't do the play. So there must be something going on in the brain that actually is enabling us to do what we currently do instead of what we used to.
Well, and again, back to conditioning, you're all, 3 of you are part of educational system in some way or form. Do you think the educational system is squeezing play out?
You think?
For kids? So you're going into school, they're crushing crushing away, and they're taking all the play away
freedom
to make us miserable. I don't know.
To
I
make
mean,
us compliant.
yeah.
Yeah. Most schooling is about compliance, not about improvisation, in my opinion. And that's why I work in schools, because I think that that is such an unfortunate reality. But yeah, it's about controlling the bodies of minoritized youth. It's about controlling all bodies and when they can eat and when they can go to the bathroom and when they can stand up and take a break. It's a very controlling environment.
Mm-hmm. But do you feel? I wanted to ask Jason. Do you feel like if you're playing, you're wasting time?
Sometimes, not all the time. Not all the time.
So there's not
Yeah.
a guilt. There's not a guilt kind of component to it where you're not doing something more productive.
No, sure, that's there sometimes. Yeah, that's there. Yeah.
For anybody else?
It sounds like that's what it is for you, Sean.
For me?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm playing in my head all the time, SB. So I think about so I like to hike, right? And one of the things I like about hiking is I feel like I'm 10 years old again. And so it's more about being in space and being on rocks and because we used to play in the woods all the time. We called it the woods all the time. So I feel like that harkens back to when I was a kid and we would play around. So no, I mean, for me, I also look at it as, maybe there is a benefit side to it, which I do think I'm more inspired. I get more creative when I'm in a playful mode, for sure.
I just, when you sent that prompt out, I kept thinking about the fact that most of the people that I know in education do not take a lunch. And we're not even talking about play here. We're just talking about, a normal biological function that you need. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's amazing to me, like how many people don't eat throughout the day and how many people look at you when you do take a lunch and you do eat throughout the day. Like there's some shaming going on there. Like, oh, you get to take a lunch. You must not be as busy as I am. And so you're like, damn, if I take this lunch, then maybe somebody might think that I'm lazy or whatever like that. And that kind of goes, I mean, SB kind of like pulls on my heartstrings when she talks about education, because that's exactly what I think about education. But to add on to that, I feel that, everything that we do here in America is about a competition, and when you're taking a break or you're playing and stuff like that, you're not competing. And if you're not competing, you're not advancing. And so I think that is instilled in us early and often, to the point where when we get to that point where that pruning does happen, we can't even go backwards on it. We're just like, oh, well, this is how life is and this is how I gotta be. And I feel like the generation before me really valued that type of mindset. I mean, I speak to like my aunts and uncles and my parents and stuff like that. I feel like their value system lies in the fact that they work and they work hard and they work often, and the people who don't are just not as valuable as the people who do. So
Hey, can I ask you guys
I was gonna say one of the things that you need to play is energy. And I think that as we get older, one of the things we don't necessarily have is an unlimited well and supply of energy. Our bodies may not have as much juice at the end of the day. So in terms of carving out time for play, we just might have run out of gas, whereas kids have so much more room and freedom and energy. So, I mean, thinking about at the end of the day, how you choose to spend your time, you may just want to power down. So there's a lot of like powering down. I mean, if you can't eat all day and you're running and running and running, and then you've got some follow-up work to do afterwards, like, I guess it's like, as we're adults, maybe switching out play with like relaxation or like recharging batteries is something to like a balance. You know what I mean?
Well said.
Yeah. Hey, I got a question for those of you in the education system. I'm just curious about this. Do you guys see, what you were saying, SB, about schools and control and really trying to limit creativity, or I forgot the exact word you used. Is a part of that a result of, for example, like the changing culture, for example, like increased gun violence and things like that? Is that kind of forcing
No,
the
I think
school's
it's the
hand in some
design of the
respect?
educational system.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think it's the original design.
Okay.
Churn out factory workers, teach, cultural values around compliance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think and look, and no one is happy in the system, including the adults who are creating those controls on
running it,
young
yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Right? What you describe, Andre, is what I experienced also as a classroom teacher. Even though my school was actively working against those mindsets in order to support greater well-being, but I do think, Jason, that you point to like a larger cultural value and for play. And Andre, as you were talking, I was thinking how ironic it was that your form of play is also a form of competition, and anybody who plays a competitive sport and that's their play, then they're being socialized into these adversarial relationships rather than improvisational relationships. I mean, you could say, yes, you're improvising with, with your teammates, but you're playing against another team. And so I think, that starts, that's socializing us to be competitive in our work lives later on.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Andre.
I was just gonna say, and there's much more at stake when you have to compete in the educational system and in your work life. It's much more at stake than playing basketball on a Saturday afternoon, which I think is, I like competition, but competition, whereas I'm going to be rich and you're going to be poor, I'm not really for that,
So two things. First of all, I'm kind of bummed out where as we get older people, we have to choose. Oh yeah, let's give up play and just let's nap. I mean, it's just like, really?
It's so true. It's so true.
No, I'm out on that. I don't want to give up that early.
I know.
But back to the question I asked you about the Olympiad, competition versus play, because it's definitely, I mean, just by the nature of the name, the Olympiad, there's a huge competitive nature to it. But so do you try to work in making it playful and making it fun versus just an ongoing competition?
We absolutely do, because it's set up where you can exercise all parts of your brain and body. So there's things that are really fun and different events that are good for people that love to study and learn, and then exercise their mind and achieve that way. And there's lab events where you can titrate and work with a partner and do cool experiments. So you're using your hands and your mind, you're solving problems. And then there's engineering events where you get to work with people. And one thing that actually just came up, we have rules that come out every September. So it's like the rule book that you have to those are your guidelines for the year that'll set the tone of the competition. So it's all the named events. And one of the events this year, we always have a flight event. And so we give these very specific engineering specs of, you need to build your flying device a certain way, and it has to fly a certain amount and has to weigh a certain amount. And then you're judged on your flight time and your efficiency, essentially. And I've heard a criticism that sometimes Science Olympia can be too prescriptive, that we're telling kids, make this plane, fly it this way in this condition. And then if you did that, then you did a good job. So this year we've been listening. And what we did this year was said, build an aircraft. It has to fit in this box. See if it flies. Okay. And it's going to freak people out. I'm literally releasing information a week before the rest of the country is getting it. It's a big deal. This is a big change for us. And it's really actually going to upset the apple cart, because it makes all the people who are the supervisors who have to judge you nervous too, because now you're coming in with this much more creative design that speaks to you, that speaks to the conditions that you're building in. Is it a helicopter? Is it a biplane? Is it a glider? And so we're trying to say to kids, you come up with the design and you make it fly and see what you come up with. And I'm excited about it. It's a big change for us though, because science can be quite prescriptive, and it can
Mhm.
take some of the
Mm.
fun out of it. Well, for safety reasons, we want our rockets to launch properly, and when there's a problem and it's not built right, then things go wrong. So being precise, you know, can be fun for people, but in terms of trying to open it up to make it more creative, this is something that we're trying to address. So we are
That's
trying
great.
to bring more creativity into the process, and that's like a very specific thing we're hoping will resonate with kids, especially as they're coming out of COVID. I mean, I'm sure we all understand the effects of what that has done to us as a society, to like basically clip our wings. I mean, we all
Mhm.
stayed home for 2.5 years. The kids lost all their socialization. Everyone's, I think, almost afraid to kind of come out of the box. And these little boxes are part of it. I'm really curious to see, as we enter like a somewhat normal year, how adults and kids re-enter like the world of socialization and fun.
Mm.
Like, is it going to be like a complete wild, like overswing to the uh-oh, you're having too much fun? Or will people sort of be afraid to even, you know, they called it, you know, fear of going out. So there's like FOGO, not FOMO. So, you know, I'm curious to see where this year leads us.
Well, I think attendance at concerts and sporting events and things like that is, I mean, off the charts, I think,
I think so.
which is a positive sign.
It is.
Yeah.
Can I add to what Jenny said? Because Jenny just brought up, I thought, an amazing point. As she was speaking, I was thinking about our PE department at our school and how, like, as a counselor, I get several kids trying to find a way to get out of PE. And for me, when I was in high school, PE was the shit. Like, if you gave me 3 PEs throughout the day, I would have been set. All A student. I'm coming to school, never being sick. Like, that would have been my ideal schooling situation. In fact, I think I did take 2 PEs, at least my senior year, because I had the space in my schedule to do it. But then I look at the kids that are now, they're all trying to get out of PE, and I'm just, in my mind, I've always been boggled of why kids either don't want to go, don't want to dress, or don't want to participate. And then when you started speaking, Jenny, I was like, well, shit. Well, maybe it's because we have PE, but the adults have gotten together and created all these parameters and rules and regulations about how the PE needs to go and stuff like that.
And
then
what you need to wear.
what you need to wear, yes, SB, and what earrings you have in, and all this other crap that kids are just like, you know what? Nah, this is too much, like, you know, some crazy stuff. You know, I don't want to do this anymore. I'd rather have fun on my own. So when you brought that up, I'm like, wow, maybe that would be a remedy to our situation with PE.
It could be. I mean, it's just basically it's giving you the choice to create what you want that speaks to you, that's fun for you, instead of telling you this should be fun for you. And for PE, this should be good for you. You should be having fun playing, when some kids playing would mean going into, you know, the kitchen at school and making some food for culinary arts, or maybe it means going and playing an instrument. It doesn't mean being physically active. So I think the sliding scale of defining fun and play is so different for everyone. But I mean, wouldn't it ultimately be something that brings you joy? Play brings you joy. I think of play as like a smiling, happy, like person with a big smile on their face, having a good time, you know, having a really good time.
Do you know anyone that comes to mind who's good at play? Who say, oh, this person I know is good at play, and here's why I think they're good at play.
Who are you pointing at? No one can tell on Zoom.
Sean.
Oh, I'm
I
good
was
at
just
play.
thinking the same thing.
Yes, Sean is good at play.
Definitely. It looks like it.
Well,
Yep.
that's very nice of you guys.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, definitely.
So what does that
You gotta remember,
mean?
Sean, I've been
Yeah,
in your
well-
house. I've seen you jump into the pool randomly. So I know you're good at it.
Right.
But seriously, what does that compliment mean? What does it
Yeah.
mean that Sean is good at play? What does that mean?
Well, I guess I mean, maybe Okay, so in my world, how I'm envisioning it, Sean doesn't have any. To me, there's no rules attached to Sean's life. Sean does what he wants, including where he wants to live. He's like, you know what? I'm sick of Illinois for today. Tomorrow I'm going to California. I'm gonna go to California. I'm gonna stay there for a couple weeks or whatever. I don't know. Let's see where the wind blows me. And then I'm gonna swim a little bit. I'm gonna go rock climb. I'm gonna go help some people. You know, I'm gonna do what I want. There's no schedule. I've never seen him carry around a calendar or a schedule book. You know what I'm saying?
That's
He
not
might
true.
do it, but I've never seen it. And I feel like whatever, if he does carry around a calendar, it's full of stuff that he wants to do. He's not putting anything in there like how we have to do it. Like, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. No, Sean's doing what he wants to do. I consider that to be play.
I gotta hear your response to this, Sean.
Well, I don't even know what to say. I mean, I appreciate, I guess, the compliment and the perspective. Fortunate enough to have a bunch of freedom to do those kinds of things. But you know, the one thing I will say is that I try to do the things that I want to do, and those things that that begin to feel like a burden, you know, can I assess them and figure out a way not to have to do it?
Has play gotten easier for you as you've gotten older? Or how would you describe the plight of Sean's level of play?
Yeah, I don't like napping. Actually, sorry, Jen. I'm kidding.
I hate napping. I can't. I
I'm
never
kidding.
nap.
I'm
I've
kidding.
literally never taken a nap in my life.
My God,
never.
you should try
Yeah.
it.
I couldn't.
Right.
I'm no way, man. I'm always. I couldn't. You couldn't with a
Yeah.
with an elephant dart. You couldn't put me down during the day.
I would say that yes, it's gotten much easier because there would be a time where I would have thought I was wasting time if I was playing and not doing something more productive. But I haven't really felt that way for maybe a decade or more. Yeah.
I talk to a lot of friends who are at this age where everybody's thinking about 50s, 60s, talking about like retirement and what that means. And I think that word doesn't like apply to our generation anymore. I think it's so odd, but I think because everyone wants to still produce and give back and be connected and feel like you have purpose. And a lot of times that is through either work or, charity work or philanthropic work, but just to be active and involved. But I think the definition that most of my friends use is to be able to choose how to spend your own time. That's what retirement used to mean, stopping work and then whatever. I consider it now working hard enough to get to a point in your life where you have control over your day and your day doesn't have control over you. So obviously you've gotten to that point where you are able to make more moves in your life that are based on your own choice and not a lot of have tos. So your life is full of want tos, which I consider play. I mean, if you can do a lot of want tos and not so many have tos, you're in a more joyful stage because you don't feel as burdened. So you're able to experience more joy, which sounds awesome. And I look forward to that. I hope.
SP's thinking. Go ahead, SP.
She's thinking.
She wants to respond to that.
There's so much swirling in my head. It's going to come out very incoherent.
Yep. I never said anything coherent. So, and you always say things coherently. So give it a go.
I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of autonomy, thank goodness, in my career. I decided to become a small business owner and not to have a boss or be a boss for ideological reasons. And I have a lot of autonomy, as you were saying, but I don't know that that gives me necessarily more room for joy. I think there's something, and I am a caretaker, and I will be a caretaker for another, an active caretaker for another 15 years or so. And I think so many people, especially women, this is gendered, are caretakers for their entire lives, and and those kinds of responsibilities don't ever stop. So I mean, like what we're describing is this like freewheeling, retiree, jet set. Like that cannot be the only way that someone can play. And so I'm like charging myself to say, you have a person who's inviting you into play all the time. Play, just play. I don't need a plane ticket to go play. I can, be in my own home, but there's something that's stopping me. And I mean, I'm playing all the time, but there's something that's stopping me from what you're describing is that sheer abandon and joy. Sometimes I feel it. Sometimes, as you describe, I get into the flow state, playing and pretending. But it's hard. I've had to
Do you
get better
remember?
at it.
Do you remember a time when you did have that?
When I was like really enjoying make believe.
Yeah, or where you would say I had more. Where you I'll call it where it feels like you had more freedom.
More freedom
to play.
I don't know that I remember myself in that way. How about others? Like as a kid, like gleeful about something.
Or,
yeah, I mean,
or maybe it was 15, maybe it was 25, maybe it was 5. I don't know.
I don't know. I think some of the stuff that SB was saying, the responsibilities that we feel as caretakers, is just the word responsibility. I think responsibility can be the fun sucker. I mean, it's great to be responsible and I enjoy all the roles that I have. But you are, you're very contained by those things, I think. And whereas I think growing up your whole life thinking about work and partitioning your time, there used to be this like dividing line. And I don't think our lives are like that anymore. I don't think there's like a race that you run and you finish the end and then you run across and you're like, I'm free. Like that doesn't seem to exist for a lot of reasons, for economic reasons and, just tons of different reasons, just how we exist today. So I don't know. I feel like it's got to be like a daily choice, like that we try to fit something in, and maybe it's a conscious choice kind of on that spectrum of like caring for ourselves, to think like, what do I want to do? Not just like, oh, I'm having fun because I'm playing with you, or I went to book club, or I went and played pickleball, or whatever people are doing. Like, how is it feeding me? And maybe just, I mean, I haven't given that a lot of thought for myself. And it's kind of uncomfortable to think about, like to reflect on, what do I need to feel like I'm in a state of play, a state of joy with some abandon, with my responsible self hat on. So I think that's really, really challenging. It's challenging.
You bring up joy and abandon, and it occurs to me that there is this huge domain of adult play that we have not touched on in this conversation. And yes.
Oh.
And I was thinking about it, in the course of this conversation. A dear friend of mine disclosed that they have some interesting play in their relationships with their partner. And I was like, oh, okay, that's something to know about you. And sexual play is the form of play that I think is the adult form of play. And isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
Like where you can like
release
your inhibitions, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's like, there's some section of the adult mind where that's an okay place to play, or maybe even dangerous place to play, but it's more I think known about and as an adult form of play that isn't a competitive sport or a pick-up game of basketball.
Eyebrows raised.
I was going to make a much more boring point than that. I say we go with that line of thinking.
Right.
That's a really good point.
That's a really good point. MenLiving, so which is why I bring it up as well.
That's a really good point.
I don't know. I feel like, I kind of have the opposite reaction to what SB says. I mean, I have these responsibilities and I work, I have all these things that I have to do, but I don't really feel like, I feel like I love doing everything that I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so it feels like play. Like even this, I'm participating with you guys. To me, this is fun. Mm-hmm. Now, am I moving around and like, is it a competition or anything like that? No, but this is fun for me. So that's why I make the time to do it. Just kind of like what Sean was saying. Going to doing what I do for a living, to me, I wake up every morning like, okay, yeah, I'm glad this is going to be a fun day, you know, and the kids bring it every day. Every day something is different. You know what I'm saying? Maybe if I was a principal or something higher, maybe I'd feel more of a joy sucker if I had responsibilities of adults. But I mean, since I just really just focus on the kids, I mean, it's just real, like, I don't know. I just feel like for the most part, I feel joy in everything that I do, even though I have small restraints into a lot of the responsibilities that I have.
Would we say that's like a kind of a grown-up way of approaching like joy and play, that we turn our daily lives into like a place where you are clearly in flow? And I mean, is being in flow being at play? Because basically, like you're saying right now, we're all talking to each other. I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm completely here and present, thinking about you and looking at you guys, and that's all I'm thinking about right now. So I'm in flow with you talking about this and just thinking about play and having fun thinking about it. I mean, you can see my teeth all the time, so I'm always smiling thinking about it because it's interesting. Like I'm interested in the topic and I'm interested to hear what you have to say. So what is the difference between being happy and being at play and being in flow? And as an adult, is it different than being a child? Like when you don't have all those, you know, neural pathway things that you know, SB was talking about.
Well, that's an interesting question, because Jason, you know, a hobby for you, which I'll call it play, was flight. You used to fly for fun, I'll say, as a hobby, and now you do it for work. So
Cool.
is that kind of a transition from play to work, and did anything get lost in the translation?
No, actually it didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the one thing that thankfully I've been able to hold on to, because I recognize just how grateful I am to have the support system that I had that allowed me to pursue this. And I almost feel like I'm cheating life these days, and not to sound, you know, Pollyannish, but because I am doing something that I absolutely love to do. Now, don't get me wrong, there are days sometimes I wake up and I don't want to, you know, get up and go to work, but those days are few and far between. So yeah, that's an interesting point too, Sean. No, the other point I was going to make earlier was, and I'm not one of those guys that wants to blame all of society's ills on technology or smartphones or this and that, but I do believe that what I would say the generations that preceded us didn't have to deal with was, I mean, there are no boundaries anymore, generally speaking. You know, I mean, you know, if you have a 9-to-5 job, you know, you're coming home, but now with smartphones and laptops and Zooms and everything, like it doesn't stop. And I know for me, again, I don't know if everyone's mentality is the same. When I had more of a traditional 9-to-5 job where I pursued my pilot career, like I never turned the brain off. It was on from 6 a.m. Okay, got to do this for the kids, got to go to work, I got to come home, got to do this for the kids, got to do this with my wife, got to do a couple things for work, and then you go to bed. And that was kind of my life for so long, and such a grind. So I feel like, and I'm not blaming technology, I just feel like, I'll speak for myself, I'll use I statements. I did a horrific job, you know, really managing that work-life play balance at a younger age. And now just being more aware of it, I still don't feel like I have the tools. Well, I'm better at it, I think, but I still don't have really the tools to, I guess, to put up stronger, healthier boundaries in my life so that I can be present, like Jenny was saying, in what I'm doing. Because I totally respect what Jenny's saying about me. I'm not fully present here. I'm rarely fully present, to be honest with you. I'm like 85, 90% here, but my mind
I hope you're present when you're flying a plane.
Of course.
Yeah.
He was present when you were talking about sex, SB. So he was really,
That's true too.
he was
Yeah,
really present. He's
planes-
like, wait. He's like, can we focus on that? I'm
When
present.
I'm flying and but talking about sex, only times I'm ever present.
Yeah.
So I'm a very simple person, not very complex.
Hopefully not doing those both at the same time. Then you'd be
It's
really
not that
happy.
glamorous, trust me.
Oh, he'd be so happy.
Yeah.
That's play. That would be play at its best.
Yeah. Oh man.
We've taken a turn. Sean, bring us back. Sean, we've gone
Yeah.
I'm lost. No, I'm done.
on the dance floor. Sean,
Yeah.
you.
Nope, I'm not gonna do it.
I'm trying to figure out where to go from here.
Everyone's just
Jason doesn't even know what to say.
I have a picture of Jason right now in my mind that is just not he's flying and there's stuff happening and it's actually flight has been a thread of this, so I don't know. Fear of flying, are we talking about? I mean, come on, we could SB and I could really go there right now.
Let's go there.
Nope.
Do you see how silly we are when we try to play? I have a something. I was still mulling over your question in the back of my mind, Sean, of like, when's the time?
Yeah.
And I didn't want to go all the way back to childhood, but when our last conversation was about travel, and it occurs to me that not just because when I'm traveling, I have more fun and I'm more playful, but because I think other cultures that are not America are actually more playful and celebrate it and have time for it and have time for relaxation too, so that you have the energy to do the playing. And two places I've been that are particularly playful are Northern Ireland and India. And two really like different kinds of playful qualities in culture, but like an appreciation for a joke, and just like really like making people feel jolly. And yeah, so I can remember just having a lot of fun because it was, that's what you do. Just like in America, what you do is work. And then when you go and hang out with your friends, you talk about work. It's just, we're so, we're inside that onion and we can't even see the outside of the onion so much that's impacting us. But I really do think Americans have a tough time playing. That's why maybe we're so serious about, well, I guess everybody's serious about their sports, but
I think you're so right, just culturally. I mean, one thing that I notice, like I was saying, the kids at the end of the driveway just messing around, just playing. That's actually somewhat rare because play is so structured today. I mean, I used to knock on the door of my neighbor's house and we would say, "Can you play?" And kids would come out and you'd mess around from like dusk till dawn. You just, just had so much fun, just always having a good time, no rules, nobody was watching you. And now it's play dates. So everything, even for the kids, is arranged. There's so much arranging and so much scheduling, and that's our kids. I mean, and so I'm wondering, as they grow up with the social media, with the phones, with the distractions of technology, and the helicopter and lawnmower and whatever other machine parents that there are, scheduling the shit out of our kids, and then constantly trying to keep them busy with all the sports and stuff. I just wonder, if you ask kids right now, like little kids, who would have the ability to ponder this, like, what is it like to be in that kind of overscheduled, play date world? I'm just curious because I didn't have any play dates. My mom, and I don't even think she knew what that word meant, Yeah. So it's interesting to think about what it'll do to kids.
Well, I mean, speaking of kids, how do you feel about, play for a lot of kids is video games? I mean, how do you feel about that? I mean, is that new play? I knew what your answer was going to be. I mean, there's advocates that say, you know what, that's the play that we have today.
A lot of our kids in Science Olympiad love video games, and they do a lot of simulations. I mean, there are some very good, like, technological reasons that they can be very helpful for like developing different types of like intelligence and spatial and visual aptitude. But overall, I mean, I would have some kind of a, raspberry 2 thumbs down sort of feeling along the lines of SB, that it just, I just see it as, physically limiting, taking you away in a solo space. I know some people have a lot of joy, and I know there's, great emphasis on like e-gaming and all different kinds of ways that can be more fun. But I don't know. To me, it's more face in a screen, and I'm just lumping all face in a screen together right now.
Right.
I'm not sure how positive. Lots of learning to be done and some good things to pull out of it, but I'm not really sure. I'm not convinced.
Yeah, Sean, as the father of a 13-year-old gamer, I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
I hate it. I really do. And I mean, I played the kind of games that we had in our day, the consoles, Nintendo and Atari and whatnot. But not to this extent. And it's just, my personal opinion, and this is, I see this in my son, is that I think it's hindering his social capabilities in a big way. I mean, he's got two older sisters, so he doesn't have a brother. Maybe it'd be different if he had a brother, but he will isolate himself all day and play games if I don't limit it. And I do see some negative effects, in his social behaviors, and again, part of it is who he is. He's just a shy kid right now anyway, but I don't think, I don't know, like.
And I think when it's so, yeah, I know so many children who are, what you describe. And when you think about the function of play in childhood, and even, play therapy, for example, it's figuring out how to be social, figuring
Yeah.
out how to negotiate social situations, playing house, playing dress up, playing school, all of the scenarios are, how can we improvise different scenarios in order to, different outcomes in order to prepare ourselves for the things that we do in life. And maybe that's why adults stop playing, is because they think they figured it out. And they don't have to come up with, new iterations of that scenario. We get kind of ossified in one way of doing business. But I think that, video games really does deprive young people of engaging in scenarios that are actually relevant to life, and instead replacing them with with sometimes very violent scenarios of life. And you get the feeling that that's what life is. And I think I've seen the consequences that can come from that.
Yeah, and even beyond video games, I would just even all social media, like Snapchat, like, again, could you argue that that's a social platform? Yes, of course. But it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing as talking to someone one-on-one. It's not the same thing as feeling the energy with another person and connecting with that person, or doing something creative with that person. Instead, my two teenage daughters are just constantly on Snapchat, just snapping pictures to all their friends and laughing. And again, is there a social aspect to it? Yes. But I also think it has, I don't know if I would say a dark side, but a downside. I just don't think it can match the type of connections I think we had before that technology existed. That's just my opinion.
Do you think your kids play?
I think they play the way they know how to play. I mean,
So you think
it's all relative, Sean. I mean,
well, that's what I was just going to say. Are you putting rules around what play means because of the way you look at it? And for them, it's play, but you're like, no, it's not play.
I mean, I don't at this stage. I got a 15 and 17-year-old daughter, a 13-year-old. Like I don't. I'm one of those fathers that likes to, like, I'll make suggestions, I'll say things, but I do not mandate at this point in their lives that they have to do it this way. You know what I'm saying? Like, is that what you're asking?
No, basically, no, not so much that you do it, but you feel like the kind of play that they do isn't. It sounds like you don't feel like it's the right kind of play.
Well, no, okay. I can see why you'd say that. Let me rephrase it. It's just not the kind of play that I can identify with.
Right.
So I don't want to go so far to say it's wrong or they shouldn't be doing it or it's not as good, even though I am kind of saying that. But
look at the outcomes. More feelings of loneliness and isolation among young people.
Yeah.
And the antidote to isolation and loneliness is play.
When
real
I
play.
think, again, whether it's online or on phone, like I think to me, I shouldn't say it forces, but it's it's an easier platform to be inauthentic, right? Because you can act a certain way online or on your phone or how you're texting someone or messaging with someone versus how you would communicate with them. And I think it fosters more potential negativity and inauthenticity than it does authenticity.
I think
Just my
especially
opinion.
as children are developing their identities, that's true. And I think the difference, because we've talked about social media in this venue before, and I think it's the difference between immersion and having an immersive relationship with social media versus a companion relationship. And some adults who have, like removed the addictive element from their lives can have it as a companion, as a tool, and put it in its right place. But I think when young people are in a totally immersive environment, it warps your identity. We've seen that happen multiple times in very scary, outcomes.
Yeah. And maybe I have a little bit of a slanted view personally because I'm divorced, I'm single, so I do online dating, and there's so much inauthenticity and bullshit with I'm 48, so people my age and even older, it's exhausting. It really
So you're going
is.
to put likes to play in your profile?
I think I'm going to change it as soon as
Play
this
while
call's over.
flying.
You're gonna get so many more swipes. So many more swipes.
And that's all I want. All I want is
Playful.
a swipe. I just want the outcome. Yeah.
And you with your plane. I like to play and fly. Change it right now. Do it while we're
Now we're getting on my
Just have
subject
Jenny and
area.
SB work on your profile and you'll
You're
be
gonna have
done.
so
My
many
online
damn
dating
dates.
profile consultant.
You'll be done.
Jenny and SB.
You won't even be able to do these anymore because they'll be dating all the time. We just ruined, Sean. We just ruined your whole big question group. He's out.
You're just gonna part the sea of bullshit with this new profile you're gonna help me set up.
He's having so much fun dating. He can't even be part of the big question.
Right.
Bringing back recess should be the first line on your profile.
It's actually not bad. I think that would generate a lot of.
It's good, right?
This
It's
is
really
much
good.
more
I'm
fun
not
than
joking.
talking about the goods and bads of social media.
Right.
But we have to go.
I know you
Yes.
have to cancel us, but I mean,
Wait.
throw it
I'm
in
not going
there.
to cancel. I was going to close it out, but
Oh,
go ahead.
So let me
Go ahead.
just throw devil's advocate because after talking to some of my my close female friends, they say I'm a pot stirrer, so I gotta make sure I'm pot stirring stuff up. I was a yes ma'am, SB. I was a gamer growing up. You know what I'm saying? I did a lot of video games. I think the video games are much different when I was playing it back when I was younger than what's going on now. I couldn't even play the video games that's going on now. I don't really play video games a lot anymore, but I was really into it then. And I feel like I had a lot of socialization growing up as well. So I mean, I hesitate. I'm very hesitant to say that social media alone or video games alone has caused our kids to be less social. I think it's a collective of a whole bunch of things, including those things. You add those things into it, and then you add other things, and you add what we teach kids in school, which I think is a big part of it. They spend 8 hours a day in school, and think about how much socialization goes on in the school. I mean, they're around people, but really, do they get to socialize a lot? And problem solve and conflict resolution. I mean, that doesn't really go on often. I guess let me rephrase that. It's not a main focus of a school. You know what I'm saying? We don't focus on that. We focus on our academics and abstract things. So
not if we have anything to do with it, Andre.
That's correct. We need to open our own school. Me and you, SB, you can head it, and I'll be your reinforcement.
Yeah, and SB will be teaching sex ed.
Yeah.
So
that's how I got my start.
You did? Really?
Best job I ever had.
Yeah.
Done.
So thanks everyone. It's always a pleasure. I'm not even sure how to close this out. Okay.
Go play.
I guess just yeah. I mean, I think one takeaway you want people that watch this to leave with.
Okay, I'll go. I'll say, I think we're punishing ourselves because we're using a yardstick of what play and fun are. And I think we're kind of beating ourselves up a little bit that we aren't having fun and we aren't loose and we're not having a good time and we're not, it's more of the like, oh my God, I work too much. I need to have this balance. I need to convince myself that like I have balance, that I'm doing a little bit of everything and self-care and feeding myself well and working and filling responsibilities. So I kind of want to like give myself a little bit of grace, and maybe the other adults, give yourself a little bit of grace that whatever your fun is, whenever you feel like cool and at peace and like happy, that's your play. And that's enough. It might just be 5 minutes. Maybe it's an hour a day. Maybe it's an hour or a few minutes a week, but and maybe just recognize that we're trying, and then we'll get there. Just like, I don't know. I feel like I'm trying to check a box, like I'm having fun. And that's not, that's just like, that's kind of bullshit. So I'm just trying to give myself a little more space to like examine it.
Thanks, Jenny.
I'll go on the other end of the continuum with the more classic kind of childlike form of play, and take a Mr. Rogers prescription and live in the land of make believe for a little while it's still lasting, and see if I can really get myself there and think about like, what does it really take to just abandon, and not want to fold the laundry or sweep that pile of dirt up, and to just be in the land of like make believe.
I think for me is really nice to just have a perspective on what it is. Just trying to talk to different people and observe different people and kind of what they do. I think that's how I learn what I like to do. And I brought the example of Sean. I've already told my wife that, in about 10 years, I want to have a house in Cali where I can just fly to anytime throughout the year and not have to answer anybody. That would be awesome. And I would have never gotten that perspective if I didn't know Sean. So just meeting different people and learning from them, I think is a key to maybe increasing your own play.
Yeah, for me, I guess it's kind of following up on what I said earlier. It's establishing a practice of being more deliberate with the play. And again, the example I use is taking out distractions and trying to dedicate time to be present. I mean, I feel like for me, if I don't set the environment, I'm not going to be able to do it. So even like last night, we did a family dinner for my daughter's birthday, and I didn't intend to do this, but I just decided I wasn't going to look at my phone the entire time, and I didn't. And I did notice a difference, that I was able to be a little bit more present. Again, it's a practice, but I felt really good about it. And I found myself actually getting really annoyed at the rest of the people in my party who kept going on their phones and getting distracted. So for me, yeah, it's just about really being more disciplined and establishing a practice to focus on this stuff a little bit more and make it more a priority.
Yeah, I just want to end with one thing that Andre said earlier. Kind of talked about his life, his work, his family, and just being. If your mindset, if your being is joyful in all that you do every day, and that can be a hard thing to do for sure. You're playing all the time, and then maybe we don't need to focus to have these hour conversations on needing to play. But that was my biggest takeaway. And watch out if Jason is your captain and he's flying because he's never present. And then
make sure he's alone in the cockpit. That there's no airline in the cockpit.
Make sure there are 2 flight attendants and not one.
But we're all going to Sean's though, right? I mean, Andre gave us a great idea. that I think the source and the place of all play and happiness is Sean's in California. So clearly we're all going. So
The big question, live from
The
Palm
big question.
Springs.
oh yes.
Live from Palm Springs.
100%. I will help you with the fundraising campaign to make
February sounds like a perfect time to go to Palm Springs.
Thumbs up. I love it.
Thanks everyone. Always a pleasure
Thanks,
to see
Sean.
you.
Thanks,
Hope to
everybody.
see you
Good
all
to see
again
you.
next month. Peace and love.
Bye, all.
Take care,
Bye.
guys.
Bye.
Good month.
Bye.